Yes, good afternoon, Harlem and Harlems of the world. I am Terry Wisdom, and this is Harlem Network News. And as many of you know, Harlem Network News is a new media platform. We started at the onset of COVID. My background is in film and television, and I've been a Harlem entrepreneur for a long time. But at the onset of COVID, I knew we had to jump in the deep water, especially when folks were running around Harlem saying, I'm Black, I can't get it. And part of that had to do with they didn't see their images on television. So here we are 2 years later, and we're still just assuring that the community is informed with the voice and drumbeat of Harlem. And today, as you can see, we have a very special and honored guest, and that is in the person of Congressman Charles B. Rangel. Some of you know him as the Lion of Lenox Avenue. He was our congressman for District 13 for 13 years, and he was preceded by the Reverend Adam Clayton Powell Jr., who was the first Black congressman. So there's a lot of history here, and Congressman Powell was also a mentor to Congressman Rangel. So we have a lot going on. And before I go further, I just wanna wish everybody a happy Harlem Week. It's so far been amazing. It's very uplifting. And I believe that there is a seminar on the Charles B. Rangel Systemic Racism Summit. And that is tomorrow, and it'll be live streamed from 12 to 2. We'll have the link on our platform. We're a proud media partner, and you can also go and look for the Harlem Week schedule. So without further ado, because this is a very busy man, we have our Congressman Rangel. If you would just say hello to everybody and just share a little bit about yourself, your background, and what led you to get involved, in politics and help the community. Thank you, Congressman Rangel.
Well, Terry, thank you for this opportunity, and congratulations of starting a new and different line of communication with so many people with our beloved Harlem. Not only was I born here, but it's in my blood. And even when I got married, my wife, that almost 60 years ago, said, when you retire, you promised me you'd go back to my hometown in Florida. I made it abundantly clear. I may have been very foolish when I was young, but not foolish enough to think that I would ever leave Harlem. The truth of the matter is that my history starts long before me. And it's so important that people get a sense of the historic value of being able to say, hey, I know Harlem, I'm from Harlem, I want to remain in Harlem, because all over the world, people know our achievement, what we have done, but most importantly, Harlem was the goal for African Americans long after slavery. If you could make it here, you could make it anywhere. Adam Clayton Powell was not only the first Harlem leader, but he was the first national leader for Black folks. And he fought hard from the city council to have a seat created when he was elected to the Congress. And he spent 26 years in the Congress before he went to Bimini and absented himself. So it was really in 1971 that I began my 46 years in the United States Congress, having retired in 26 years. 46 years.
Yes, thank you.
I say retired, but I'm still doing work at pro bono at City College, because I recognize that unless we can expose our young people to the value and importance of education, it's very difficult for us to compete. So we have several programs at the College of the City of New York to
I love it.
encourage youngsters to not only to stay in high school, but to prepare for the wonderful opportunities that the infrastructure changes are going to make. We have the money, we have the time, we are planning each and every day for broader programs. And so if people could contact City College that are in high school, we can help prepare them for a better, more educated future. I dropped out of high school when I was 17 years old and joined the Army because I had a single mom and I knew the check would be appreciated, the allotment check from my salary in the service. And not only that, but my older brother, he had volunteered for the same reason before Pearl Harbor, and he had served in combat in World War II. I volunteered not thinking about another war in Korea. And of course, I was wounded in the Korean War. But out of that came the financing from high school, college, and scholarship to law school, which
Beautiful.
made all the difference in the world. And so every morning I thank God for my blessings and the fact that I am married to a woman that truly has not been behind me, as they say in the cliche, but has been my partner throughout my political life. 4 years. I spent 4 years in the New York State Assembly, a couple of years as a United States attorney. And the Harlem community has just been the wind under my wings. And I thank God every morning for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you. I'm Terri Wisdom. This is Harlem Network News. And we are here with the Honorable Congressman. And it's just an honor and a pleasure. And thank you so much for mentioning your beautiful wife. And I know that you're also a father and a grandfather. And that is a lot because you have belonged to the community, but also have a family. And I know that your incredible wife, Alma, has been a partner. And that's very, very important, family. And I love what you shared in terms of your experience and your journey and your commitment to being right here in Harlem, which is significant to us all. My parents both grew up in Harlem on 119th Street, actually in the same building. And my father was older than my mother, but they ended up to marry. And we ended up to move out to Queens. I grew up in Queens, but it's iconic because I came back home to Harlem. So it's a very, very significant place. A lot came out of it. And it's important, that we stay and we do what we can because there's a lot going on here in Harlem, a great need for a lot of changes. But getting back to your experience in Congress for the 46 years, I know that you're very instrumental in the Congressional Black Congress and Caucus, and also chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. What's the significance of those things? We want everyone to understand. And also, what happens in Congress? How were you able to really make changes and impact for the country and for our beloved Harlem?
Well, we are still living in a country and suffering the pains of the race system, which emanated when human beings, Africans, were brought to this country in chains and really with a hopeless future. The Civil War allowed the president to end slavery as it was then. But after he was assassinated, the South, who literally lost the war, they won the battle because all of the corruption and evilness that surrounded slavery persisted in the South, and Africans never been able to work with the majority of the white community at that time in order to assimilate, to educate, and to become a part of this great society. With that, we lived a terrible life. Wherever there was success, there was the Ku Klux Klan, there was white racists destroying us. And actually, when I came home from the service, I had never really faced the hatred of white Southerners as I did when I and Percy Sutton and Paul O'Dwyer joined the freedom fight, and with Martin Luther King marching from Selma to Montgomery. I was in combat for a year, but I never felt the hatred of people that were supposed to be Americans, feeling that all of the contributions we made should be just eliminated. And so, Terry, I was really at the right place at the right time. I had completed, I went back to high school. I completed college at NYU. I got a scholarship and I completed law school. And in 1960, when I graduated, I was appointed by Robert Kennedy as Assistant U.S. Attorney and had for the first time to see life beyond the streets of Lenox Avenue. And when I joined up with Percy and Dr. King and Andy Young and John Lewis, I knew then that the second Reconstruction was beginning, that Blacks had to fight for the right to vote. And President Johnson seemed to have said that he was turning it around. Well, he really didn't turn it around. It still exists today. And if nothing comes out of this program except an education of your broad listeners to know that those who fought and died for our freedom deserve that we take the time out to register and to vote to make certain that we bring equality to the United States of America. It was not intended when they had written the Constitution, but we have made great advancements. But we only made that advancement because we've had the political strength to do something. And so there are two things I like to leave a message for, and that is that while most people recognize the importance of a general election in November, where you elect most of your state officials and members of Congress, before that, they have to vote in what is called a primary election. And that is to determine who is going to run as a Democrat and as a Republican. Those of us that live in primarily Democratic districts have to make certain that we register in the primary and register as a Democrat if we want to vote for a Democratic candidate. If you don't register in the primary, then you don't have a say in who ultimately is going to be your candidate. And so now, when we see that the former President Donald Trump has recognized the poison that existed in this country as a result of slavery, the many people that are not satisfied with this country, the hatred they have for Jews and Catholics and Blacks and Browns, who thought that just because they were white, they were entitled to preferential treatment. And they have been receiving preferential treatment.
Yes.
The whole idea that they thought that Obama and others could take that away from them led them to storm the nation's capital and subject themselves to not only bodily harm and arrest, but to put our policemen, our Capitol Police, members of Congress in fear of their lives. This is serious.
Very.
And it all has to do with us. And we have to make certain that we get that fight back that Fannie Lou Hamer and those before us had if we're going to survive. We owe it to Harlem, we owe it to our kids, and we owe it to the leadership of people of color throughout this country that we just can't afford to go backwards. When I went to Congress in 1971, there were just 7 Black members of Congress there, and later became 9. When we got there, the 4 of us joined and created the Congressional Black Caucus of 13 people. So many people said, why, if you're in Congress, do you have to be called Black Caucus? Why don't you try to get along with the white majority? Well, the truth of the matter is that when you have people with the same background, the same economic problems, you can do better working together than you can individually.
Absolutely.
And I'm so proud to say that out of the 13, it grew to 26, 36, 40, 50. Today, I'm proud to say in the Democratic Party, we have 29 African-American women, 29 African men, and they form the 58 bases of the Congressional Black Caucus. We had Vice President Harris, former President Obama, all come and go out of the Congressional Black Caucus. Me being there for so long and being in charge of the Ways and Means Committee, I had the opportunity to help other members of Congress as long as they saw fit to help us in our plight to make America great again. And so there were any number of bills that were passed. I am very proud of the fact that one of my bills allowed American business people to get the heck out of South Africa so that we could end the apartheid that was there, improving the educational opportunities for our youngsters, having the empowerment zones, which encourages Black businesses, and so many incentives by using the taxes to improve the quality of life, not just for Blacks, but for poor people throughout this nation. And the recent bill that has been passed by the Senate and the House, and hopefully by the time this program is viewed, would be a further opportunity for us to bring down healthcare and to make the rich pay a comparable tax and to improve our infrastructure. But I'm telling you, Terry, there is so much that has to be done because it takes a long time to have people who have enjoyed for over 400 years the fact that they could get a better life because of their color, to have them to believe that they're going to lose something. And people can say, well, I'm not a plantation owner. I never was involved in Jim Crow.
Yes.
No, but the nation has not been united. So we have to all come together and to realize that there won't be any white preference or white great America unless we can bring all of the people to come together. And Harlem, of course, has been the mental historic capital. And we are so proud that so many people have seen fit in the arts and politics and education and scholarship to come here. And I am just so proud that Harlem has been my entire adult life. And hopefully I'll be able to continue to make a contribution. Very few people are able to say that they haven't had a bad day since they've been working. And I was shot and left for dead in Korea on November 30th, 1950. And I told God,
My goodness.
if she got me out of that, I'd be spending the rest of my life trying to make life better. And the name of my book is, And I Haven't Had a Bad Day Since. And
all right. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. This is Harlem Network News, and we're here with the Honorable Congressman Charles B. Rangel. and also known as the Lion of Lenox Avenue. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for the encouragement, because there's so much going on in the world. It can get to the point where it feels overwhelming, but when we hear you say you haven't had a bad day, and just your commitment to really making a difference, and also sharing with people about the voting, because we have a very serious problem in New York City, as well as, in our beloved Harlem. I know that the last primary, we're in a primary season right now. Early voting started on the 13th. I've already voted the very first day, and it ends on the 21st, and then it goes on the actual primary day on the 23rd. And this is new. Right now for this primary season here in August, we are dealing with the state senators for District 30. And I know that primarily it's our sitting state senator, Cordell Clare, and being challenged by Shauna Harmongarth. And then I believe all of Congress is up for re-election. So folks need to get out. But Congressman Rangel, what do you think? Because there was a swell of involvement, the civil rights movement, there was great leadership. What do you think it will take to really get these Harlemites and New York Cityites out to vote and realize what is the apathy, or just what is it about? What can we do to change the paradigm, in your opinion?
Well, to me, what you are doing is one of the many things, because people have to really believe that it's important, that their vote counts. And one of the things they can do may sound negative, but if you listen to the former President Donald Trump and know that when he preaches for a better America, and know the groups, the Ku Klux Klan, the racist groups that are talking about they're afraid that Black and brown people are going to replace them. If you see what they're doing in the South of restoring the barriers to people being able to vote, these are the things that young people never had to worry about, but their parents and their grandparents fought and died for their right to be able to be in the position that they're in today. And that includes Adam Clayton Powell and Malcolm X and Fannie Lou Hamer and thousands of people that put their life on the line. So when you ask people of color and poor white folks to vote, you shouldn't have to really give them any reasons except to take a look at their history, take a look at where we are, and take a look and see whether they're satisfied and they can make a difference. And so during this election all over the country, who decides who's going to run the Congress is in the hands of the people. And if enough people believe that they can make a difference, they will make a difference. And so I can't emphasize the importance enough of participating in the primary, participating in the general election. And for God's sake, for those people who realize the importance of education, don't be satisfied that you were fortunate enough to have God's guidance and God's support. Grab somebody's child, grab your own kid, give them a little help. So many Black kids don't have the benefit of having a Black father to be able to guide them. So yes. What? Take what you got. Take the hand that you've been dealt, improve in that hand. Take someone else's child and teach him and try to tell him what he or she has to do to make their life better, the community life better, the family life better. There's such a great satisfaction you get in knowing that you helped somebody to be somebody. And so it's just really not an economic theory. It's a family theory of survival, And we have to work together and do it together.
Okay, I'm definitely of that sentiment, and I just think, we cannot get discouraged. Even in terms of what our history was. This is Harlem Network News, and really claimed it. That's why we're doing the work that we do with Harlem Network News, to really assure that people are informed, and then once they're informed, then they get engaged and they go and help someone else. But I think some of the frustration, and maybe you can explain this, but I think people feel like, oh, we had a Black president and everything in the world didn't change. We now have a Black mayor. We have, a lot of more Black people in Congress, a few in the Senate, Black vice president, mayor, city council, and things in the eyes of some of the people seem to be the same, if not getting worse, in terms of housing, in terms of the homelessness, the mental illness problem, gentrification here in Harlem. So how do we answer those, and how do we mobilize, in your opinion? Because we know, Congressman Rangel, you're a great strategist. So,
Well, the first thing you have to acknowledge is, if you find yourself in such a depressive state, the one question that you have to ask, what have you done really to improve your condition? Because giving up and saying, whoa, 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 I can't do anything about it, only accelerates the dissatisfaction one would have with the quality of life. We must always remember that there are tens of thousands of people that are trying to get into this country, trying to become citizens. So that as bad as things are, it's better than it is for most of the other countries in the world. The second thing is that politics really is second only to religion and belief in God in terms of having things to change. But you just can't depend on prayer alone. You have to be able to say, I am sick and tired, and I want to bring change, and I want life to be better for our children. If you were to ask a person, who is your city council person? Who represents you in Albany? Who represents you in Congress? And they say to you, I don't know and I don't care because they do nothing, then that is exactly what our oppressors want us to do, to be so indifferent that we just give up. Don't you know, if the slaves had just said, we're slaves, we're nobody, we have no name, no identification, we're not human beings because this is what the whites have taught us, we would still be slaves today. Somebody had the courage to be able to say, enough is enough, and I'm going to do something about it. You don't have to be Adam Clayton Powell. You don't have to be Martin Luther King, but every one of us got a little bit of this pride that we want to do better. Is it asking too much to know the names of the people that are getting paid to take care of the problem? Is it asking too much to say that you are participating in an election, and whether you win or lose, people are looking to see whether you care? We have sometimes in our community the lowest amount of people coming out to vote.
Thank you.
And people say, well, we had Obama, we've had so-and-so, we had Clayton Powell, we had Rangel, and nothing's better. You can't imagine what life would have been like without having the Congressional Black Caucus, without having the leadership in the New York State Assembly in the hands of African Americans, the leadership now. Now in the city of New York, we have an African American mayor. He is exciting, he's challenging, he's good, but we gotta have a tag to make certain that he produces.
Absolutely.
If you don't stay on the politician's case, he or she is going to go to the people that are on their case. If
Mhm.
you want to be counted, you have to be able to say, I have done something to be counted. And believe me, I haven't heard of anybody that hasn't got a response from their elected official once they make that effort and say, hey, I got a problem and I want you to deal with it. And so I'm not satisfied at all with the slowness of the problem, but I am satisfied that in this great nation, they may not have been thinking about my people, but they're thinking about them now.
Okay, okay. Well, I thank you for sharing that because it's very critical and coming from you who has really made the journey. And I also think it's very important that young people can hear that you dropped out of high school, you went into the military, you came back, you went to college, you went to law school, you came from a single parent home, you know, where you cared and said, okay, I'm going to do this so I can help my mother. So people need to hear this, that, as you said, this is not a woe is you. And it was probably even harder during that time, you know, so we have to look at that. If you could just say a little bit, because this is history, about what's known as the Gang of Four, and this is Harlem Network News, just share what that was and the support that you all gave to one another.
Well, when I came out of the military, I guess you might have thrown me in the category that I mentioned, and not knowing and not caring, even though I was smart enough to know that when I was in the Army for 4 years, I wrote Adam Clayton Powell, the Congressman, every week.
Oh, wow.
I would get respect. He didn't know me, and I didn't know him. But when they called the name out, they said, Rangel's got another letter from Congressman Adam Clayton Powell. And so I just used getting a letter from my congressman to build up my prestige when I was nothing but a GI. But as I tried to say earlier, I have never felt the pains of racism since my mother was born in New York.
Mhm.
And even today, I can't think of any white Southerners that I met in New York City. It doesn't mean that the racism is not there. It meant that the lynching and the burning down of houses and all of those things. And when I got out of the law school and became a federal official and traveled the country and saw the hell with the communists in North Korea, I had something more threatening to my life in this country. Percy Sutton was very, very active in the NAACP. And I had not been active politically except in a small political club that I belonged to. And Assemblyman Lord Dickens was the head of that club. And Dave Dinkins was with a person called Ray Jones. Anyway, the four of us did not know each other at all. But somehow we met trying to do in our own way to improve the conditions in Harlem. And with the help of J. Raymond Jones, and with the help of the solidarity that the four of us had, people are surprised that none of us had gone to bars and had drinks with each other. None of us had gone to each other's home and had dinner. None of us were politicians in the sense of the word, that we went to dances and clubs. But one thing is certain, we had commitment. And when we heard that someone from outside the community was planning to run for the mayor, we went to the meeting just to find out who were these people and what were they up to. Okay. We didn't say a word, but they assumed that because the four of us worked so closely together, they assumed because the four of us came there together, that the four of us had a plan. Our plan was just to see what these people in a different borough were doing. At the end of the meeting, someone from Manhattan said that they were running for mayor, and it upset everything that the group had planned. We had nothing to do with it, Terry. But
Okay.
the person who lost out, when they said, what happened? They say, a gang of four of them from Harlem,
All
a
right.
gang of four of them stabbed us in the back. And we were shocked to hear that. However, we were also surprised when the people in Harlem said, good for you guys. We
All
won a
right.
gang of four, and with the help of people believing and knowing that you had to deal with the borough president, the state legislature, the city council, and Rangel in the Congress, we were able to make more advances because mayors, governors, and presidents, they wanted solidarity, and we presented that. And that is true no matter what you do in life. You know, people have said that you got 5 fingers, each finger doesn't mean anything. But if you're able to bring them together and make a fist, you got power. And the four of us was able to demonstrate that cooperation brought political success.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. And I love doing interviews because I always learn something. And, you know, I think media and everything always like impacts things like a gang of four. So, you know, here we understand from whence that came. We're getting near to the end because I know you have a busy schedule. And I wanted you to share a little bit about our District 13 and the parameters, and then with the redistricting, because it's a different District 13 when you started as a congressman, and it was a different one when you ended. And there may even be more redistricting. What about that? How has that really impacted, changed, strengthened, or weakened the community? And what can we do about it?
Your notes indicate that when I was elected from the 13th congressional district. Every 10 years for all of the districts, they draw new parameters. Why?
Okay.
Because in the Congress, as an example, you have 435 members of the Congress. But every 10 years, we have more and more people added to our population. So you have to really divide the population into the number of districts. Some states have less people, some districts have less people, other states. So when I went to Congress, New York State had some 40-odd members of Congress. Now we have just a little more than half that number. Why? Because states like Florida and Texas have grown in population, and therefore it means a shift in political power to where the people are. Not to give us civic lessons, but in the Constitution,
No, it's important.
Every state, no matter how big or no matter how small, gets 2 senators. And so one state may have 1 House of Representatives because that's a population, and they only have enough people to warrant 1 member of the House of Representatives. But even these states get 2 representatives. And a lot of people would want to claim that that's unfair, but that's the facts that we have today. And so when you divide the numbers, you have to change the lines. And when I was elected, I had East Harlem, Harlem, and a part of the West Side.
Okay.
The Dominican community was growing, and we didn't have enough people in Harlem. So in order to make certain that we had enough to fulfill our obligation, they took the Harlem seat that for 72 years was the basis of people that lived in Harlem, and took it to the Bronx in order to bring in more people. So forget for 13, we changed to be the 15th, the 18th. And so the numbers change as the number of members of Congress change. But the fact of the matter is that the same thing applies to the local and state offices. You have to make certain that you have enough people to fulfill the mandate that you're getting your fair share in the count. One thing that's important is the census.
Yes.
The census counts how many people there are. And a lot of poor folks don't like people knocking on the door and asking a lot of personal questions. A lot of people are not citizens and not here legally, and they don't feel the need to cooperate. But the truth of the matter is they call that an undercount. There's no question in my mind the poorer communities get undercounted. And as a result of that, federal and state grants that are based on the number of people is dramatically reduced. So we have to be counted, we have to register, we have to vote in order to exercise our full political power.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. And we don't mind the civics lesson because here at Harlem Network News, we say knowledge is power. And in closing out, Congressman Rangel, if you could just share, because so many things have occurred since you left Congress. I mean, obviously, we have had COVID, we've had, President Trump, President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, opioid crisis. We've had so much go on. Violence, mass murder, climate change, infrastructure, housing, just so much. And I know there was a lot while you were there, but what are your thoughts on some of these issues? And we know that Congressman Adriano Espaillat, came after you. How's he faring? Do you consult with him? I mean, what's happening here? Because people want to know. These are the hard questions, but truth to power.
Well, Congressman Espaillat is doing a wonderful job in working with me with the projects that I've had going with City College. We work as partners with what influence I have with my former colleagues in Washington. I am more than glad to call when he needs a problem down there to help. It is a very sensitive problem because when people have a congressman for 46 years, they get used to them, they want them, they get to know them a lot better. And especially when you're a new congressman like Espaillat, he has his own constituency that wanted to be the first Dominican. So no matter what you do, you're going to find that it's difficult to have a transition. But the transition is what we have. There's some people who say, I know you, Rangel, I hate the person that beat the candidate that you support. You can do all the hating you want. But if you have a federal problem, you can't say you don't talk to your congressperson. If you're a state or city representative and you say, Rangel, you got to be my congressman for life, and so don't you worry about me not working with Congressman Espaillat. Well, that's stupid because your congressman for life has no vote and no influence as it relates to a sitting congressman that's anxious to try to establish himself as a congressman in our district. And so as it relates to these other problems, go to the archives, as I often doing, and read what the problems were then. Every generation believes they're on the edge of the end of the world. And we have kids that are born that we've had war every year that they have been born, and they're now adults.
Sure.
And we've had troops in every country. And the question of one of the biggest things that happened was during Reconstruction, if Blacks didn't have the opportunity to own property, property is the easiest way to pass on your economic accomplishments to your children. Education is the easiest way for independence where people don't have to tolerate racism because they have enough self-esteem to stand on their feet. Complaining, I don't know what Calvin put it in it, but it is really not that productive. And I can tell you during the darkest of hours, when things look great, there's some type of proverb or song or something, but what it says is that damn sun is going to shine and I'm going to be around when it does. And you have to be able to overcome, and not overcome by yourself, but to see what resources are available so that you can survive to be able to do it. Woe is me, woe is me. Hey, I know you got a problem. But when I think of what my mom went through and what so many other families in my community went through, I mean, the whole fact that 3 out of 5 Black kids are going to know something about jail, the whole fact that 90% of the people that are Black that are in jail never went to trial. They all pleaded guilty. I mean, these are big things, and people can't sit in their house and complain about it. They got to make certain they change the laws to do something about it. And I don't like preaching. But I know one thing, that if you make an effort and someone asks you, what did you do today? If you could say, well, I helped this family, they had a problem. I didn't have much money, but I helped them pay the rent. Or I saw Mary's kids, he was smoking pot in the street. I told him about a job opportunity. I don't care what it is. God has made it possible for you to get a sense of gratitude, no matter how small the contribution you make to it. And it makes your problem a lot clearer as to what you have to do if you have the clarity to focus on that and not to focus on what you don't have.
Okay. Well, thank you, Congressman Charles B. Rangel. Thank you so much for really sharing, giving us that inspiration and the lessons. And I love what you said about Congressman Espaillat and working together, and that he is our congressman now. So it's very important to reach out to him, and like you said, whatever it is you need, you were writing to Adam Clayton Powell, you know what I'm saying? So, once you start calling the people, they know you. And I can say with Congressman Espaillat, I call him all the time. He has an amazing staff. They answer the phone. They know me. So much has happened. And, we have all suffered with gun violence and just COVID and just the prayers. I lost my son to gun violence in November of 5th, 2021. He was shot and killed on the Shinnecock Reservation in Southampton, 43. And that crime has not been solved. But what I can say is that Congressman Espaillat reached out to the Department of Indian Affairs, to the department, all different departments. So, if you reach out to your Congress people, or if you reach out for help, like I reached out to Jackie Rowe Adams and Harlem Mothers Say, so you have to take some action. Whatever is dealt to you, you have to take action. We have to keep the legacies alive and make sure that that doesn't happen to someone else.
My deepest sympathy to you. But when I was in the Congress, speaking to the graduates of the historic Black colleges, I used to joke and say, I wish I had a gift to give to each one of you on your graduation. But I'm going to tell you something that you should carry with you to life, and that is that if some policeman ever abuses or misuses you, you tell them that Charlie Rangel is your distant cousin, and you can bet your life I will respond. But the truth is, then I changed it and said, Johnny Cochran. You tell them you know Johnny Cochran. Now I said, you tell them you know Reverend Al Sharpton.
Yes.
The truth of the matter is that the more people believe that you know somebody, the better they're going to treat you.
That's very true.
So the fact that you are able to tell me the people that you went through, and
Yeah.
it's not that you got a solution, it's that you didn't give up and say, whoa, 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 you are still working on it. If you have a half a dozen people who've heard this story from you, and as a result, write to Congress and said, I heard Terry over a program and
Yes.
I want to support her efforts. And that is true of everybody and everything. Programs like yours,
Mhm.
if 90% of the people said, I've heard that before, that's okay. All it takes is 10% to make a difference.
Yeah, no, it's just very true. And so I think that we all have to reach out. Representative Reverend Al Taylor was also very helpful. Our borough president at the time, Gail Brewer, all of them were really there for me. But it's a reaching out and accountability. And sometimes it's hard to reach out, but once you keep on reaching out, then they know you. And you have that alliance. So thank you so much. And we also have taken initiative here at Harlem Network News to bring our sister Brittany Griner home. We have a petition. Everybody can go to our website and sign it. And we know that there are, some back negotiations going on, but our petition is directly to President Putin. We know there's a long relationship of the Black people being oppressed and Russia. So, we have to appeal in every way we can. And I love what you said, just in terms of every generation has whatever they're going through. So, it continues. And I just want something to be done about the housing. When I hear them just in a very flippant way say the mean rent in Manhattan is now $5,000. I mean, what do we do about that? We see these high rises going up and this homeless, this is a dichotomy. So closing statements on that one.
Well, really, when they talk about mean, they include people with the highest income in the country. And so the average family doesn't pay 5,000. But I tell you this, if it was 500, if you don't have it, it's the same as 5,000 to you. And again, when you see the billions of dollars that we're able overnight to send to Ukraine, hundreds of billions of dollars, it's some idea of the resources we have. And we don't use the urgency in investing them into shelter. The same thing applies to healthcare. We've just decided to take on the pharmaceuticals. And that's because of big money that influences leaders in this country. And so what I'm saying is that housing, healthcare, education, we have not made the investments in the areas that makes a difference. I paid back money that the federal government had given me in the GI Bill 10 times over in terms of taxes. So it's no big deal. It just makes sense. If you give someone a hand up when they're down, you can pay back and make this a better country when you succeed. And so I'm glad that your program, that you'll have different people with different views, but basically it'll end up on a positive note that with some of the religious program, you would walk away and say, amen, God bless me, I gotta pray harder. But with your program, I think people are gonna say, I can do more and I'm gonna try to do more. And with the prayers, that'll help. But you got to get up, you got to get out. You can't give up, you can't give out, you can't give up. The fight continues and the oppressor is working while we are sleeping.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And I think that's a great closing statement. And I think most of us here in Harlem, in the Mecca, we're not sleeping, we're working, and but we're also trying to get our rest because we know that's important. So thank you, Congressman Rangel, and please say hello to your lovely wife and the family, and thank you so much for it all. And if you'd like to just give a final closing statement to our audience. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you and the program and all the people that made this possible. And for those who are fortunate enough to be able to view this, I hope you just take away from this, what can I do to improve the quality of life for someone else? There's a group that Bob McLaughlin runs for kids. It's called Each One, Teach One. Well, people may not have to be educated, but if you can live by example and to be able to say at the end of the day that you've done something positive to contribute, I am telling you the power that we have that is unused. If you walk into the Congress and you see a third of the Congress Black, you feel like you're somebody. And we have to not only feel that we are, but exercise that power.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And this is Harlem Network News. You can reach out to us at harlemnetworknews@gmail.com or call us. We want to make sure we don't have any technology divides. You can call us at 646-261-5397. And we air every Sunday at 4. We do specials, and we also rebroadcast often at 7:30. And we've had the honor and the pleasure to be with the Honorable Charles B. Rangel, our Congressman for 46 years, the Lion of Lenox Avenue. And you can also reach out to him and his center at City College of New York. I think they start with high school and different programs on the infrastructure. So thank you for that. And I want to just say thank you to your co-worker assistant, Ms. Stent, for really coordinating and making this happen and touting the fact that in terms of you working or doing and giving back at a college, you're giving back at City College right here in Harlem. So I love it. So thank you so much. And we'll spread the news and promote this show. And this is history. And you heard it right here on Harlem Network News. Thank you. And have a great day in Harlem, and enjoy Harlem Week, everyone. Thank you. Take care.